Hey everybody, BTO Pro here, and today I'm going to show you how I'm teaching SQL in IST 210. I know you're extremely interested. You're like, Brian, why haven't you told me about IST 210? And the reason is I'm just writing the lecture slides and things now. So this is kind of a sneak peek at my EdTech Joker 3D course. It's named 3D because I'm rebranding the course as Dystopian Database Design, which of course you've got to have cool memes and GIFs of yourself if you're going to have a cool dystopian course, obviously. But the reason why I'm treating it in a dystopian manner should be pretty apparent based on reality. But the other aspect is I never really connected with SQL and yet had an entire semester where that's just all we did. And by connected with, I mean, I got the concept in about an hour, but then somehow paid money for a course that lasted, 3 hours a week, 15 weeks. We're talking like 50 hours of sitting in a classroom or so around something that really only took about an hour to pick up. Now, I Googled, I know it's really hard to believe, but I Googled learn SQL in 1 hour. And wouldn't you know, someone actually made a video with that. This guy, Joey Blue, has this cool playlist. It says basic SQL training. And so you could either click view full playlist and get, at least, from what I've gone through, the vast majority of what it is to do SQL. Now, instead of saying, oh, well, you just pay for, me telling you to watch these, it'll become a supplemental resource in our course. So I'm using HAX.psu to deliver my course because got to dog food our own platforms. So I'm going to go in and under resources, I'm going to add learn SQL in detail. This is a great video tutorial series about all things SQL. Note that while it does cover SQL Server, an older Microsoft product, better make that capital M, the content aside from that tool is entirely unchanged. And I use the phrase entirely unchanged for a reason. SQL, like, this is an interesting thing. Like, when you have standards, right? Like HTML, we build on the standard of HTML. At one time, you would have needed to go to a whole class over an entire semester to learn about HTML because while it was a standard, it was not well propagated as far as discussion around this standard. What's interesting is I feel like we've got this tail gobbling going on where the topics, and maybe this is only true in the IT realm, I'll totally accept that, but the topics that were new, that were kind of emergent and bleeding edge, if you will, when I was in school, which is, we're going on, this would have been 18 years ago that I would have had this course. Those topics were not well documented, widely available. Only technical elites could get access to them. But through standards bodies propagating these through their usage across industry, through YouTube and cheap video streaming technology, as well as a lot more voices on the internet, that tail is getting gobbled up. And maybe it is only 18 years ago or whatever, but there's no reason you need to go take a course on how to learn HTML in a real place when you can just Google learn HTML. You could probably put in learn HTML in an hour. So instead of making my course focus on those topics, we're going to cover some of the high-level stuff associated with SQL for sure. But we're not going to get nearly as deep into it because if you need to get deep into that stuff, which I never have in my career, which has involved interfacing with SQL databases on a regular basis, then you can just go and you can Google that. So I want my course to be much more about practicum, much more, hey, let's take this big idea and unpack it. Let's look at the philosophical reasons for why we would structure information a certain way. Because we don't ever discuss ethics in the IT realm. We just don't. You can claim that you do, but some 400 level courses will cover legal, policy, ethics side, but usually ethics is put over in its own category. Let's just talk about that in a vacuum, not out here in the real world. And unfortunately, some of the more interesting classes I ever had in college were around the crossroads of science, technology, and society. There was actually a whole minor and major, I believe you could take at one point, called STS. They were kind of to the side of IST. Those courses don't exist anymore. So we need to bring them back. And that's part of what I'm going to be doing through any course that I can get my hands on. So why this rambling? Why having this interface up? In a past life, all of this time that I've spent rambling would have been spent figuring out how to embed links to resources and publish myself online and maybe even embed that initial tutorial. And instead, I can spend this time thinking and being free of the technology and the learning constraints of HTML or HTML. So we're going to turn that into a heading. We are going to say link to the playlist, but here's the first one, which covers all the basics in great detail. And so I'm going to then highlight that, link off to that YouTube playlist. Now let's go to basic SQL training, and it's this learn in 1 hour, right? So we're going to copy that link. We are going to go to add content, go to video player. I'm going to drop a video player into the page. We don't have a closed caption for this. Learn SQL in 1 hour. Sure, we'll make it purple. Why not? And I'm going to paste that in. Cool. Get rid of some of this additional spacing. Whoops. Some of this spacing here. We go. Screencasting resources. I don't need the word checklist there. Okay. And save. All right. So now, instead of thinking even about something like, what's the iframe embed code for this, right? Instead of going to the playlist and be like, oh, I want to embed that for my students. Instead of going, oh, shoot, what is it? It's share, embed, privacy controls. Okay, copy. All right, where do I put that source in here to get it exactly where I want, right? I'm kind of mocking what you would do in a CK editor or in a Canvas environment from an educational perspective. Instead of all of that, we can unlock creativity at scale by letting people just focus on the material, think deeply about how to teach, not how to get that iframe embed there. You, as a technical elite watching this, might go, you know what? That's not a big deal. That would have taken me like 30 seconds. Some people that takes a half an hour, and some people's half hour is an hour, and some people's hour is most of a day. And when you cross that threshold of about 5 minutes, most people are just going to say, I don't know, I'll just put a link there. And my students are then going off to some remote link as opposed to having a unified experience in this space. Anyway, I have now put in the fundamentals of learning SQL. In fact, I've covered most of that course I took 18 years ago. I didn't cover it. Someone else did that did an expert job of covering that topic. Why not defer to that person as the expert in that space so that we can focus on learning through examples, through actually deconstructing why certain data structures are the way they are. And then with all this free time that we've generated, we can cover ethics, all of the aspects of IT, and not just how to build something, but what and why we are building something. See you this semester. I'm pumped.